I understand that people are going to be calling your parents or worried sick about you. Just put it on silent if you don't mind. Appreciate it. Yes?
Can you do that for full phrases, or is it just words?
We're going to talk about full phrases in just a second. But when searching in Google, I think what ultimately ends up happening is once you put foreign, remember you're going to put a space after whatever the other word is. So the only word it's going to eliminate is the foreign. All right, but we'll talk about like searches, particularly for phrases. All right, there was a hand over here. Yes. Yeah. So if you were say domestic surveillance space foreign, that's fine. But there can't be a space in between the minus sign and the word foreign. Okay. All good questions. Anything else? All right. Everybody okay so far? Good. Now, another thing you can do. A lot of times we'll be doing topicality work, and we'll be looking for words that we can use to define key terms in the resolution. Google has a function for that as well. It's called the define function. However, this is also very similar to if you just simply put the definition of metaphor. Okay? So you don't necessarily have to do this, or you can just put definition of a word, whatever word it is you're searching, but you can do the following. Somebody give me a word they want to define.
Domestic.
All right. All right. So notice quotation, define, no dot, space. Oh, and 30 timers off too. Oh, I guess I'm done. Well, that was my time. All right. So quotation marks and then domestic. When you do that, Google will automatically come up with several definitions of the word, the origin of the word, and if it is a complex word, it will even have a function which will actually allow for you to press sound to play what the word means. So if it is a word that you can't pronounce, this happens to me all the time, like a Key and Peele sketch right there, this will help you define a lot of those key words, all right? So we use quotation marks. We've got minus signs. Now, yes?
Does it matter if there's a space between the colon?
I can hear you.
Does it matter if there's a space between the
I generally put a space in there, it works out fine. I didn't try it without a space. It's possible that it will work just as well with the space. But if it doesn't work, the second thing you can always do, if this doesn't produce what it is you're looking for, just simply put a definition of that word and Google will do the exact same thing. All right? Okay. So now, someone brought up defective phrases. It is difficult to kind of like eliminate phrases in Google. It can eliminate words, but not necessarily phrases. But let's say that you were in a debate round. Someone has read a card that you really, really like. They flashed you the evidence, but you've lost the card. But you remember a very, very important phrase in the card. Google has a function that will allow for you to search for phrases within all popular kind of like segments. So the one that I picked was thicker than water, right? That is a common end of a statement to a word. So what you would do is quotation, asterisk, all right? So the entire phrase in quotation marks with an asterisk right next to it. No space in between the asterisk and the first word. And what it'll do is it will pull every example of that phrase that it can find. So it'll help you possibly find the card that you are looking for. If you did this right now, you may see something like blood is thicker than water. I don't know, McDonald's is probably thicker than water. Probably not a good way of saying that. But that's one of the things that you can do, all right? Is this that? All right, so these are just some of the ways in which you can start your searches. So if we're searching for the resolution, someone give me a search that they would do for the resolution and how you would do it. Someone like if you wanted to search something about the resolution that we're debating about today, how would you search it based on some of the things we just talked about? And it can be very basic. Don't think very hard about it. All right?
Sure. Domestic surveillance resolution minus international.
Okay, that's fine. So under that search, remember you're going to add your quotation marks, right? All right. So he's decided that he wants to learn about domestic surveillance. Maybe not resolution, but let's say United States federal government, right? Okay. United States federal government also in a phrase, but he doesn't want to know anything about what the United States does internationally. Every article that he is going to get is going to generate a search about that. Okay. Excellent job. Now, for the fun part of the show, a little mini break. Those of you who have laptops, raise your hand. No, like with you right now, that's open. Search the word tilt in Google. Go to google.com, search tilt. All of a sudden you will notice that your screen is tilted. Yes.
Have you ever searched, like, I forgot what it was exactly, but it was like use the forest loop or something like that?
No, but I feel like that's going to turn into like me going down the rabbit hole and searching videos. But, all right. So the reason I did that was one of the things that Google will do is it'll have a little fun. You'll notice sometimes Google does little weird things, but if you ever wanted to kind of like confuse your parents, have them search the word tilt and then see their reaction. All right. Next, this is where we're going to get into kind of the meat and potatoes. So we know how to do some research now, right? And some of you all have some interesting ideas about what it is you want to, arguments you want to run about the topic. But how do we turn our thoughts into actual arguments themselves? So, what's the first thing you should do if you want to come up with an argument on the topic? What's the first thing you should do? Raise your hand if you think you have an idea. Yes?
Actually, research the topic first.
You said research the topic?
Yes.
Yes, we can research the topic? What's something else we should do? I'll give you a clue. You did this on Saturday. You brainstorm. Oh, well, I said it already now, but what were you going to say? Find evidence. Yes, you have to find evidence. But the first thing we need to do is we need to brainstorm. And a lot of you all did this before your 1ACs on Saturday. And the reason that you want to brainstorm is it gives you an opportunity to not only think about the arguments you want to make, but potential consequences of those particular arguments. Now, on Saturday, I asked a group a very complex question about their 1AC. I asked them a question about Obamacare. That group seemed to be quite stumped by that. However, Starr did an excellent job and gave a very good answer about how it would change the business model. She thought quickly on her feet. Excellent job, Starr. But one of the things that you want to do is when you're brainstorming, you want to think about not only your argument you can think of, but the consequences of those arguments. So when you do that, you're also thinking about what the opponent is going to say to you. If you only think about your argument, then you've done yourself a bit of a disservice because you haven't thought about the fact that your argument isn't 100% perfect. So rule number one, brainstorm. Come up with as many ideas as you can. That part is perfectly fine. The second part, as a young lady said in the audience, is research. As I like to call it, is this feasible? A lot of you have a lot of different arguments, but we need to first figure out if it is feasible to do what it is you're saying we should do. I gave a banana example. If I say that we should stop domestic surveillance of bananas because we need to allow bananas to grow outside of electronic UAV rays or whatever is in a camera nowadays, right? And I said the United States should ban that. Oh, that's an awesome idea. I have a great idea. I've got arguments to support that. But I have to find someone that agrees with me. If I spend all my time researching the importance of bananas and why bananas are delicious, good to eat, and taste great with peanut butter, but I don't find anyone who actually agrees with what I'm talking about or even cares about what I'm talking about, I have spent way too much time researching an argument that makes no sense. So, a big no-no is to never research an argument by starting with impacts, the advantages, those kind of things. If you're affirmative, you need to start with solvency. The first, so i.e., can we fix the problem? Because it doesn't matter if there's a big impact, can't fix the problem, who cares? If you're negative, you need to start with, can you find links to the ad or links to the topic? Because if you can't find links to the topic, it doesn't matter if you've got great uniqueness that this is a timely manner that bananas are running short or that the impact of bananas is worldwide famine. If no one agrees that the domestic surveillance causes that problem, there's no need to do that research. You spend way too much time. All right? So, first thing we want to do is we want to take what we've done in step 1, do some targeted researching about the issues that we want to research about. Someone give me an idea of an affirmative they think they will want to run on this topic, or could run on this topic. That's not the answer you have now. Yes. Louder. Okay, so reducing TSA surveillance, all right? We need to see, 1, what the problem is, right? Let's assume that you kind of have an idea what the problem is. But 2, people that actually advocate the restriction of TSA surveillance. Maybe it's against like personal or your personal rights. Maybe there's something else that is going on. Maybe people are doing things with their hands they don't need to be doing. We need to first find out if someone says that removing TSA surveillance is a good thing. We need to find a solvency card. So we would search TSA surveillance and let's say elimination or stop or amendment or modify. Any of those kind of terms to see if someone out there believes that getting rid of TSA surveillance is a good idea. What's another idea? What's our, yes?
Repeal the Patriot Act.
Okay, so we could look up if repealing the Patriot Act is a good idea. We need to see if someone agrees or disagrees, well, in half, agrees with getting rid of the Patriot Act is a good idea. All right, so we should basically search repeal of the Patriot Act. You can put that in a phrase at Google because that's a very popular type term. But let's think about some of who in here likes to want like critical arguments? Raise your hand. Wait, okay, hand, not hands. There's too many hands there. Right, separate that. All right, thank you. All right, so those of you out there like to run critical affirmatives, right? Some of your main authors generally don't write about NSA. They probably weren't alive when the NSA came into creation. They don't talk about that kind of surveillance and those things like that, right? So what you will want to do is you want to search something like surveillance or what the word surveillance might mean. In other words, survey, track, things that there's other key words. Use the define function to figure out what other words surveillance may mean. And whatever you want to, come on, cell phone off, cell phone's off, all right? It's all right. So we'll use the define function first to find alternate definitions for the word surveillance. We would then search whatever our critical argument is, biopower, anti-blackness, queerness, whatever like ism you want to talk about it with your affirmative, and see if someone talks about that in the context of surveillance. The reason being is, if you build your ad from the outside in, you've got all the link cards, you've got all your favorite Foucault articles, you probably have a poster of him in your office or your room somewhere. You found all that evidence, but if no one agrees with how to resolve the issue, those are just meaningless FYIs that you told us. So it is very, 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 very important that you do the research for how you solve the problem before you start writing out the evidence. Make sense? Everybody okay? All right. And then after you do that, step 3, put it together. Right? Start putting your arguments together. Start building your arguments, and then start brainstorming again about what things people could say against your arguments. Now you started the process of writing your affirmative, or if you're looking for links, you started the process for writing your dis-ad, and now you're thinking about what your opponents can say. That all is a part of research, because if you don't do the research to answer your opponent's arguments, you'll find yourself in rounds lost because people are making arguments that you haven't thought of. All right? Third, we're going to talk about debate cards. Why do we need debate cards? What's a debate card? Someone tell me what a debate card is. Yes?
A piece of evidence that you think is somewhere.
Okay, piece of evidence. Anybody else want to answer that?
Tag site as evidence for that claim.
Tag site evidence that is part of a card. Yes. Anyone else? Yes?
It has a warrant that supports your claim that you prove.
Has a warrant that supports the true claim of the affirmative or true claim of the negative, whatever that may be. Anybody else? Trick question. How long can a card be? Does that have to be? Yes. How long can it be?
It can be really as long as you want, but you're not reading the entire card. You're more reading like highlighted parts that you decide to highlight. So it doesn't matter how long it is, just matters how much you highlight.
Perfect. Someone else had their hand up? No. A card can be as long as you need it to be. In the terrorism diss, I think it's 2 cards, but both cards are pretty long and they both serve a functional purpose of uniqueness, length, and impact. So, a card, for those of you who are new to debate, is a paragraph or several paragraphs taken from a credible source or journalism source that proves a specific argument true. There are a couple of caveats. I got to turn to teacher mode. I got to stand behind and read this. First, as the definition says, a card can be one paragraph or multiple paragraphs. I say this because if it is just a paragraph, if one paragraph says one thing but the next paragraph says another thing, then you want to take that into consideration. So for example, this happens a lot when it comes to like politics cards. When people are looking for links to arguments where they're saying the plan is popular, the plan is not popular. The first paragraph may give an introductory to that argument for why the plan is popular, but maybe another paragraph down the line talks about the reason for why the plan is unpopular. You'll want to have all of that as part of your card. You just don't want to have that first paragraph that says that the plan is popular. Okay? And then, as my friends here said, you're not reading the entirety of the article that you cut. You're only highlighting the main important parts, the main ideas of that particular paragraph is what you want to highlight. 2, a card can be as long as you need it to be, as we've already discussed. And 3, it has to have a cite. Who knows what a cite is? Yes.
A cite is information about the author or authors who wrote the card. Basically their names and what year was it written, as some emphasis.
Yes, and let's add on to that. So there are several components to a cite that you must have. The first is you clearly need to have the author's name. Or if it's from like, Wall Street Journal, of course. But let's assume that the author is like, a person. So you want to have the person's name, the date, and when I say the date, I mean the full date. So if it's June 6, 2015, you want June 6, 2015, not just June 15, unless that's what the article says, June 15. You want to have what the author's qualifications are. Why do you think I would want to know what the author's qualifications are? Yes? Yes, for the credibility. If we are talking about domestic surveillance, would we want a 3rd grade dropout telling us about the importance of domestic surveillance? Who says yes? Yes?
I believe that the 3rd grade dropout may actually have some insightful clues about the importance of domestic surveillance, and I don't think that education is everything. For example, Jeanette Walls in The Glass Castle, she didn't get a very good education at first, but she was a very intelligent individual and has good insights about the world.
All right. So let's stop right here for a second. Nick has made an interesting observation that says that education isn't everything. Who disagrees with Nick? Why do you disagree with Nick? Right there.
Because, well, education isn't everything, it is also a lot, because some schools are just better than others, and there will be better teachers there, and you will grow and become more intelligent by being in the top 5%.
Okay, so there are certain times where the qualifications and education is important. If I am looking up information that requires scientific data, global warming, the effects of nuclear war, things of that nature, I want to have someone who is highly credible. But Nick makes an interesting argument. There are some people whose life experience can teach them certain things that you won't find in a textbook. Now, I may not want to know what this person thinks when it comes to the NSA and domestic surveillance because I don't know if they have enough experience dealing with that. But if they were dealing with other issues within life, they may be somewhat credible. Maybe. All right? You want to have, the next thing that you want to have in your site is the source. Where did you get the article from? Okay? So if you got it from, the Wall Street Journal, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, CNN, Fox News, you got to have the site. Generally, you just want to copy and paste the link that you found if you're searching on the internet into your actual site itself. That does wonders. And last but not least is you want the title of the article. And here's why you want the title of the article. Who in here has debated, gotten a card from someone, tried to search the link that it came from and couldn't find the card? Frustrating, isn't it? You're like, dude, where'd you get this card from? You just wrote it yourself? All right? So have the title, because sometimes links expire. Sometimes they don't copy the full link. Maybe just a brief oversight. So get the title of the article, all right? The title of the article, you can then search in Google, and Google will then find that article for you. So, but I'm going to piggyback a little bit off of what Nick said about education. Why do we need cards? Why can't we just get up and tell our own experiences about debate, and that be enough? Why do we need cards? Yes?
Because you're not very credible by yourself. You need a warrant to support your plan.
Well, I think I'm pretty smart. Why? I have to have a card? Why do you think I need a card?
You can't.
But good point.
Just say what you think, because you're trying to. It would be biased if it's just saying what, like, from your experience and everything, because you're the debater. Of course, you're gonna say what you think, and of course, you think you're right.
Okay. All right, Dylan.
You need it to prove that you're not delusional and this is real.
Yes.
If
We must prove that I'm not a delusional third grade dropout. Very important. Someone have their hand up over here? Yes.
You didn't like go to college and you worked in a field where you were doing like the specific ones.
Sure. As Bill pointed out, I went to Georgia State University. I have a marketing degree and a finance degree, and an MBA with a concentration in finance. I probably don't know much about global warming and the intricacies of it. Could be true. Yes.
It's like something that's still occurring, so it's not like you know like exactly what happened at the time. So it's like keep your evidence updated.
Sure. So, yes.
It's kind of to make sure that the evidence is like true and verifiable, and that like you don't get certain quantities wrong too, because you could also exaggerate certain pieces of things to make your case seem more appealing to a judge.
All right. Yes. Thomas?
If you haven't done any like studies or data calculations or anything like that, you need somebody else who has.
Yes. I am not an expert. We are all smart, but we are not experts in the things that we are talking about. So what we need is for people to support our truth claims. It builds in credibility. One of the reasons that you all believe that I know what I'm talking about is because I've debated for a very, very long time. I have built-in credibility in that way. But if you were to get up and start telling people about how they debated, and then someone said, how long have you debated? You say, well, I've never debated. You would need a little bit more to back up your argumentation, right? To support the claims that you're making. Because if you don't have that support, then we can kind of question the validity of it. So one of the reasons that we also have cards is it allows for us to compare the qualification of various authors. If we were talking about global warming and we had a scientist on one side saying that global warming exists, and we had, I hate to pick on third grade dropouts, but a third grade dropout who says that global warming doesn't exist, who would you believe? The scientist, right? The scientist has expertise in this field. The third grade dropout, you know, they work in a place that is just hot. It's like, well, you have air conditioning. There's no snowballs. How can there be global warming if I brought an ice ball, a snowball in this room? If someone did that, actually. In Congress. All right. So the reason that we care about cards is, like I said, we need to have support for our truth claims. Makes us look more credible. It gives us a way to clash. So one of the things, sidebar, debaters you all can do is to attack the qualification of various authors, attack the source of various, where people get their articles from. You will hear people say Fox is biased. You'll hear people say CNN is biased. You'll hear people say such and such author is biased. But you'll also hear people say this author is incredible because he is just an undergrad at a community college talking about this and just wrote a paper, right? You can compare and contrast your arguments based on that, because if your evidence is more credible, then that should give you a leg up in a debate. So we talked a little bit about kind of what makes a good card. Well, first off, questions about cards. Or what makes a good card? Everybody okay on that? Yes? All right, sweet. So, what makes a bad card? Those of you who have debated before, you've seen bad cards. You're probably like, wow, that card means nothing. What makes an argument bad? Liam? No warrants. Card says absolutely nothing. Literally nothing. If, this is a pet peeve of mine, so if I ever judge, this is one of my pet peeves. If your tag is longer than the amount, or sorry, if your tag has more words than the amount of words in your actual card, there's no reason for that. That card is not good. You cannot read one sentence of a card and think that is the most greatest card ever. Please no. No. Stop. If you do that, no, stop it. Alright? So lack of warrants. What's another reason?
It starts one way and then has the other.
Yes. Those of you who read a card and you see the top part of the card makes the argument you want, but the bottom of the card doesn't. You only highlight the top part of the card. Guess what? Debaters read all the card. They will catch you. Do not read a card that contradicts itself midway through the sentence. An author says, I think global warming is something that is fundamentally against everything I believe in. However, I think it's real. Don't just stop at the part where he says it's fundamentally against everything I believe. It's not a good card. Yes, you had your hand up. Yes.
Making sure your card has credibility, like a good author.
Sure. So, has a good author. Some of the things we talked about before. It's got to have a very credible source. Like, you know, if I wrote an article about biopower, how many of you will want to read that card? Remember, I also worked for a bank. Bit of a contradiction. All right? Thanks, Ryan. Thanks. All right. You had your hand up, I think, for a bad card?
The warrants have nothing to do with the thing actually.
Yes, pet peeve number 2. And this, and a way this was kind of an example was during the 1ACs that were read on Saturday, not picking on this particular group, they did an excellent job, but they talked about gender inequality or gender pay gap, right? And then they gave an example about the, like I think it was voting act or voting, I forget, something like that. So you want to make sure that your card, you want to make sure your card is talking about what your tag says it does. Last year in a college debate, there was a team that read a card that said that crony capitalism was bad, and they were reading it on a democracy advantage. Guess what? The card was actually anti-democracy. It said democracy was bad. Why are you reading that card? You just turned yourself. It's not a good thing. So make sure your card says what your tag says it's supposed to say. Anything else? What else would make a bad card? All right. So let's talk about a couple of other things that will make a card particularly bad. We talked about the fact that it must have good warrants. It should explain why your claims are true. All right? Nope, sorry. Went too far. Here we go. So, first, try to avoid cards that say the words sometimes, occasionally, can, might, it is conceivable that, and it has the potential to. These cards, these phrases in the card, and I can repeat them if you want me to. So stop me right now if you say you want me to repeat it. Repeat it? Okay. All right. So try to avoid cards that have the word. So sometimes, occasionally, can, like it, you know, it can be good. All right. Might, it might be okay to order pizza. It is conceivable that, it is conceivable that could work. And has the potential to. Like the person that cut me off today has the potential to be a good driver. That person has the potential to also get arrested for hitting someone's car. That person has the potential of me suing them. All right. Why do you think we don't want these phrases in cards?
It doesn't make you sound confident.
Say again?
It doesn't make you sound confident.
Does it make you sound confident? Yes? And now did get you? You did, the young lady.
You don't want those phrases because it doesn't say that it will 100% happen. You're saying that there's no possibility that it won't happen.
Right.
Kind of help the other side.
Right.
For you to be confident in your arguments, you can't say, oh, maybe, you have to be sure yourself.
Yeah. Yes.
If you have words that do not fill in 100% what you're talking about, that creates room for arguments.
Yes. Right? If I say that the SSRA affirmative has the potential to solve all mass surveillance, what is the obvious argument against that? It has the potential to not do it. Your author has not made a conclusion, a 100% conclusion in support of that particular argument. Yes? Oh, let's stop here for a second. But that's a good question. Can you just take that word or phrase out of the card?
No.
All right. This is pet peeve 1-A. Do not try to be creative with your highlighting to avoid the errors that are in your card. For the exact same reason, we will find them. Debaters are good at interrogating evidence. When I say interrogating evidence, I mean reading what the card says in its totality. All right. So if you take out that card, one second, Brian. If you take out that phrase of the card or those words in the card, you will get asked the following question in cross-X. So your Mathis 15 evidence says it has great opportunities to resolve the problem. Why did you not highlight the part where it says maybe? And then you got to explain yourself. You don't look credible in front of the judge. You look a little shady in front of the judge. You don't want to do those things. So if your card has those phrases in it and you're like, I have to use this card, you got to bite the bullet on those sometimes. You got to say what those cards truly mean. Because look, the author could be just making room for, like, listen, down the road this may not be an issue, but right now we think it is an issue. They may make qualifying statements to that card. So this isn't a hard and fast rule necessarily for not having the cards, but if it doesn't draw 100% conclusion, as the young lady pointed out, that makes the card not nearly as good as something that you would like. And Ron, yes, Hannah. Uh-oh.
American Drone uses cause the global arms race that risk global wars.
That risk, okay. So that part of the card that says that it risks global war, right? And you're hoping in effect that it says risk, not it will. Is that fair? Okay. So one of the things that we do in debate is we talk about risk a lot. And what is the probability? Those of you who are in my lab, we talk about impact calculus, we talk about probability a lot. So when that person is saying that this risk nuclear war, you are correct in saying that it could risk nuclear war or it could not. If that person doesn't draw a 100% conclusion that nuclear war is the most likeliest outcome of that action, then that card may not be as good as the author may think it is, or the opponent may think it is. So yes, that's a good example. Risk is another word. Yes?
So, just clarifying, so cards that have the word specified before, don't they make a disadvantage for the affirmative? Because if that card has something you don't want to say, you won't say it, and that will give the neg something to point out.
Yes. So generally, if the AF is using those kind of cards, it's a disadvantage to them, right? This is why you should always read your opponent's evidence, both on the AF and on the neg. This isn't just an issue for the AF, it's also an issue for the neg. If there are whole segments of the card that kind of, contradict other parts of the card, or it doesn't draw 100% conclusions to the card, and they have not underlined and read those cards, it is fair game for you to actually read those cards, parts of the cards, and read it back to them and make them explain how this means your card is as good as what you say it is. Yes?
So would a strategy for that be finding a card that presents the evidence 100%?
Well, some card, you will want to try to find a card that is 100% definitive, right? But we live in debate, and we realize that in debate, everything is not 100%, right? We question everything. So we want to have probably as few of these phrases as possible. Veronica pointed out a card that says that it risks nuclear war. That may not be as bad as saying if that same person was saying, well, it could risk nuclear war, or it could just be a minor conflict, or it could be no conflict at all. So it's about the number of usages in that particular card, or the conclusion that it ultimately ends up drawing. That card, if it said maybe leads to nuclear war, is a whole lot different of a phrase than if it said it risks nuclear war. Does that make sense? All right? But it is as a strategy, you would like to find a card that definitively makes an argument. All right? Oh, my laptop went down. All right, next. Power tagging, or over tagging your cards. Who knows what that is? Rod, what is that?
So you make a claim with your cards that are not supported by what the card actually says. Basically just if you
Yeah. Cool. Anybody else want to add to that? Does that seem pretty good? Thomas?
The argument might be kind of in your favor, but it's not like 100%, but you're tagging it as if they're like extreme issue.
Oh yeah. How many people have you debated seen someone say that if we, some part that, paraphrasing, if we don't do the plan, this will risk the annihilation of all things on earth and everyone will die if we don't do the plan. Then you read the card and it says, well, you know, there may be a fight between Canada and Alaska. That's power tagging. You've overstated the claims of your 1AC. It would be like me saying, no, I don't want to say that on a camera. That's probably not a good idea. We'll talk about McDonald's later. But yeah, that's power tagging. Power tagging is when you really just oversell your car, right? It's like a car salesman. A car salesman who's like, I want you to buy this really, really awesome car. And you're like, that car has 2 wheels. But he's like, but it's got 4 doors. It's got 4 doors and a steering wheel. Just drive on the right. All right? So don't power tag your cars. Says what your car says. If your car just says, if we don't reduce mass surveillance and erase tyranny and great power war, say tyranny and great power war. Don't say extinction. Your car didn't say that. That'll be the first question across X. I don't understand how we go from a great power war of Alaska and Canada to extinction. Can you explain? Is Sarah Palin upset? I don't understand. What's wrong? All right? Number 3. Actually, I want to throw one other thing in here. The date of a card is important. Now, this is sometimes, not all the times. But the date of the card is important. If your argument is time sensitive, right? Politics is a great example of this, right? You want to have the card be as recent as humanly possible. Why would you think it would be bad to read older evidence on something that is time sensitive? Start.
Basically, you just say, well, maybe that was the case then, but it's not the case anymore, so you just refer our evidence because this card came out this morning.
Right. The times change, right? When it comes to certain arguments, the timeliness of that particular argument is extremely important. If we are writing cards about what Congress did back in the 90s, that is not as relevant as what Congress is doing now. I hope or think most of those senators and congressmen and women are not there anymore. Times have changed. Things have switched up. But sometimes the date of a card is kind of okay. If you're reading critical arguments, the timeliness of it will be great if it's like, you know, Wilderson came up with a new article about anti-blackness. Might be very relevant to your anti-blackness arguments. Or if someone writes something new about like biopower that is interesting. Those things are good. However, generally most of those cards are going to be somewhat dated because they wrote them a long time ago, even if they're still applicable to this particular moment. All right? So the date of a card is important. If someone is saying that we are on the brink of nuclear war and that card is from 78, which is a great year, by the way, this is when I was born. Not nearly as timely, right? As if someone presents a card from 2015 that says nuclear war, not likely. Which card would you think the judge is going to prefer? 2015. I trust now than I did back then. All right? So that was kind of like third. So fourth is taking a card out of context. Who knows what that means? Yes?
Basically, taking a card that would usually be for, like, if you're the affirmative, would be for the negative, and just taking the piece that would be for the positive.
Right. So we kind of talked about this a little bit, right? Like, let's say that there's a paragraph, and the top part of the paragraph agrees with the aft, but the first third of the paragraph agrees with the aft, but the next thirds, or 2/3, disagree, right? If you read that card, and then the bottom part of the card is actually in contradiction or is against that particular argument, then you've taken that card a bit out of context. All right? So make sure the card says what it is supposed to say. All right. So we talked about research. We talked about how to put together an argument. And we talked about cards. Let's talk for a second about debate cards, right? Those of you who have debated before have gotten evidence from other people because they flash it to you, or you have evidence that has been on the wiki, which, you know, is a site for where people use open sources where they store their arguments. You can see what other arguments people run. This is just my overarching rule, probably one of the last things I'll say today. don't assume that that card is great. Just because a great team won with that piece of evidence, you need to read that card. And not only do you need to read that card, you need to possibly read where the article came from. Because it's conceivable that the author probably is either contradicting himself at one point, or this is just a small part of a larger argument, which means that you can recut that article and make it much stronger. I've seen this in NDT debates where great teams have read a card against an affirmative to only have the affirmative read the paragraph after that particular card. And there's nothing more devastating than when you say, we have a card from your author that concludes with us. And then you've got to figure out a way to explain your way out of that round. That is extraordinarily difficult. Okay? So when you are looking up evidence that is on the wiki, take some prep time in between tournaments to read through the article, read through the source, and to see if that card can either be better by adding to something that the author has said, or if that person contradicts something that they have said. Because if you can start pointing out that the author disagrees with their own arguments, that's almost as good as like 100% solves the takeout. Because if their authors don't agree with them, there's no reason as a judge I should vote for them. So, questions? Someone tell me what makes a good card. Yes.
What makes a good card is one that's recent, one that is written by someone who has good qualifications, and one that doesn't use wasn't just might, occasionally, can, sometimes, words like that.
All right. Anything else? What else makes a good card? Yes. Cards don't contradict. Yes. Cards that say McDonald's good, then McDonald's bad. Don't read those. Yes.
Not reading the whole article, just important parts. Like cutting the card.
Oh yes. So don't leave out important parts of the card, right? Make sure the warrants support the truth claims. What makes a bad card? What makes a card bad? Yes.
Authors that are not credible.
Yep. Authors that are not credible, unless you're Nick, who agrees that everyone is credible. Everyone's credible. Thank you, Nick. All right. Except Fox News. All right. Well, there we go. There it happened. All right. What happens when you type tilt in Google?
Your screen tilt.
Yes. Your parents are going to hate you when you come back. You're like, why is my screen tilted? My laptop's broken. To Best Buy. All right. If I want to search a phrase, how do I search a phrase in Google? Hold on. Raise your hands. Hands. Elbow straight. Yes. All right. What if I want to define a word in Google? How do I do it? Yes. Yeah. All right. What's another way I can define in Google? Remember?
Definition of.
Yes. Thank you. Definition of. All right. So, Bill, what time does the next one start? 10:30. Okay. So, it is 10:25. That is my lecture. I hope you all had a great time.